up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk Podcast. We got a banger today. We got Dante Scarnecchia coming in. He's going to talk about the Patriots' offensive line woes and what he would do to put a stop to the woes. But first, let's get after it with the Senator, Phil Perry, who's alongside. Phil, I put out a poll today for Quick Slants. The question was simple. Through 3 weeks, the Patriots have turned in three very different performances. Which one is the closest to the real them? And the patrons said, Week 3 versus the Jets, I'm afraid, 36%. 35% said Week 2 versus Seattle. 25% said it's a mix, it's a melange of all three. And only 4% said Week 1 versus the Bengals. Phil, which one are the Patriots closest to? Or is it a mix, a melange, a potpourri, if you will?
I'm going to go with a melange. It's too easy for me to look at Thursday night, short week, game script goes wonky on them because the score gets out of control, and just say that's what they're going to be the rest of the year. That's what's freshest in our minds, but I don't believe that's what they're going to be the rest of the year. They have to do things differently, though, and that is what I'm interested to see from this team moving forward. I'm talking about from a passing offense perspective.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get rid of the ball quickly enough. They don't protect, which is obvious, but you have to do things to work around that which you have to make yourselves more efficient than 100 yards passing per game.
When you watch closely the film of the games and see the speed with which it's coming out, have you noticed at all some second thoughts? A good friend of mine, Pete Kendall, played in the league for a long time. He watches every single game. He listens to and consumes all our podcasts, TV stuff, and he said, I feel like the ball might be coming out a little bit slow, which is something that you pointed out. And I think that it's not because Jacoby Brissett is slow. I think he is extra double cautious. And his back foot hits, and he's like, is it really there? And he's like, you know what? No, not doing it.
Yeah, and I think it could be a little bit of him being cautious. I think it could, because we know he's very turnover averse, right? He's incredibly low interception rate over the course of his career. I think it's also partly probably, Tom, the scheme. I mean, a lot of it is under center, drop back passing. And it's about timing and rhythm. But a lot of these throws that we saw somebody like Aaron Rodgers make, for instance, the other night, is shotgun turn and fire.
Yep.
Bubble screen types of things, quick game stuff that the Patriots have in their playbook, and a lot of it is what they tried to give to Drake Maye at the end of that game the other night in the 2-minute drill. But I don't think they are as reliant on some of the get this thing out of my hands 3 seconds ago types of play calls that other teams in the NFL have right now. I'll just give you a couple of quick numbers. Time to throw for quarterbacks across the league, Tom, in terms of next-gen stats. Jacoby Brissett right now has the 5th longest time to throw number in the NFL, behind Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, who's been scrambling around like a madman, Kyler Murray, who's been scrambling around like a madman, Sam Darnold, and he's 5th. And that to me is way too high. I think some of it is him scrambling around like a madman because he's been pressured, and we've made a lot of the magic that he's had at times to be able to avoid some sacks. So that is some of it. But I think some of it is the scheme, and some of it is his own decisiveness.
I think the time to throw thing, too, would be interesting to hear how it's defined. Is that from the time the ball hits his hands until it's released on the plays when it's released?
It's the average time between snap and pass forward.
Okay.
And it's about 3 seconds for him. That's the high end. Just over 3. Jalen Hurts is 3.1, leads the league in time to throw. Whereas somebody like Aaron Rodgers is at 2.5.
And he'll hold it. But that's the thing, is Jacoby will hold it. Which you want him to. He is, I'll say it again, the best fit for the Patriots right now. And I'm going to get off of Jacoby because we've talked about it enough. And let's get to something that's fresh. If Jayden Daniels was a New England Patriot, say the Patriots didn't beat Pittsburgh, didn't beat Denver, they had the number 2 overall pick. If Jayden Daniels was a Patriot, would he be playing right now? And would he be fitted into the Alex Van Pelt offense?
Ooh, really good questions on both fronts. He, to me, is not a great fit for the Alex Van Pelt offense for the same reasons Drake Maye is not an easy fit. I shouldn't maybe say a great fit. I think both of those guys could excel if they learn what Alex Van Pelt tries to teach quarterbacks, but neither guy was under center in college. Jayden Daniels' mechanics are cleaner, and so he would probably be a quicker study when it comes to when I hit my back foot in a 3-step drop or a 5-step drop, the ball needs to be out here.
Mm-hmm.
What he doesn't do that Drake Maye will do and does do and has done in college, Jayden Daniels, is throw over the middle much. He didn't do it in college. It looks like he's not doing it much in the NFL. Great, unbelievable throws, touch throws down the sideline, deep down the field, tremendous accuracy, and also gets the ball out of his hands quickly. So would he be playing right now, to me, is a great question, though, because Jacoby Brissett would also still be here.
Right. And you'd still have the offensive line issues. And I wonder if you would still have an offensive coordinator who was so wedded to his system and had such a strong belief in it that he would say, the right way to do this is this. So we're going to do it this way. I understand how good Jayden is, but we have to have a foundation, which it's eating your vegetables. And nobody wants to eat their vegetables when there's prime rib sitting right there. You want to dig in vegetables after, maybe a melange of that, have some prime rib, have some vegetables. You can mix in some shotgun, empty, but you also have to get them under center. But it's interesting because he's got Clifford of Kingsbury as his offensive coordinator, who is tailor-made for the kinds of quarterbacks who are coming out. Right now you have an Alex Van Pelt, and again, I give Alex Van Pelt all the credit in the world for what he's done so far. But the easier fit is to put a guy coming out of college with a guy who's going to coach it like Cliff Kingsbury. But is that a winning long-term fit?
I think people who study the league and study NFL offenses at large would tell you no. I think they would tell you Cliff Kingsbury's not a very good offensive coordinator in the NFL. I think they would tell you the guys that he's worked with in the past, he is really not set up for long-term success, and that it's a little too simple and it's a little too easily decipherable, and it's pretty vanilla once you understand what it is. But for somebody like Jayden Daniels, who already comes to the league with a certain skill set, he's allowing him to do what he does well. He's near the top of the league in terms of screen rate, so you're trying to create some easy throws for him. He's getting the ball out of his hands very quickly. He's actually second fastest in the league, behind only Tua Tagovailoa when it comes to time to throw, getting the football out of his hands quickly. He throws it more quickly than Aaron Rodgers does. And the number of attempts aren't really through the roof for a guy who's already played 3 games. He has 76 attempts in 3 games. So they're trying to limit what's on his plate. What is on his plate are quick throws, sideline throws, down the field, and hey, if you got an opportunity to run, you're one of the fastest guys on the field, go for it. That can work, clearly. Can it work long-term? I don't know. But in the short term, with somebody like Jayden Daniels, it's going to work better than if he had been put in New England, where, number one, again, I don't think he'd be playing because Brissett would be here. And number two, he'd be having to learn this traditional, classic NFL, true to the league type of NFL offense that is nothing like what he did in college.
And that's what's really going to be fascinating to watch as the season goes along. And the Patriots do struggle with a new offensive coordinator, a new way of coaching the offensive line, everything is virtually new with this system that Van Pelt is installing, new to the Patriots, I'm saying. And that's why you see them dabble with gap runs as opposed to going full-on boot, wide zone, stretch, which is interesting. I was watching, as an aside, watching Kirk Cousins busting his ass to get to the outside and actually make the handoffs. Remember how Peyton Manning used to look that way?
Yeah.
Like it was just full-on, looked like a shortstop diving to get the ball into the hands of whoever the hell the running back was back in Denver. But just, it's hard to run that.
Moreno.
Oh, yeah. Remember him crying? That was one of the great games of all time, was the Peter game.
That was an amazing game.
Amazing game.
Yep. The Wes Welker punt game. Peter. Yeah.
Peter. But it is going to be interesting to watch as the season goes along. People like myself would think, look, this is how you have to do it. You have to install a program. You have to create an offense. The Patriots had one that was encyclopedic in its breadth with McDaniels and Brady. You do have to, however, have a system in place that everybody can come in and learn. It can't just be, as Dante will say, he'll talk about, I don't want it to look like recess when Drake gets out there. Like, everybody go on. And it can't look like recess.
It can't. And that's why, listen, this is going to be a great case study. Jayden Daniels starting when he's starting and where he is with the coordinator that he has, and Drake Maye going through the journey that he's currently going through. And let's check back in what's a proper amount of time? 3 years? And see, okay, how many games has Jayden Daniels missed, right? Because one of the great concerns with him was his durability coming out. What kind of coordinator is Cliff Kingsbury? Was he able to grow and evolve over time to help somebody like this grow and evolve his game so he's not easy to defend? Did Drake Maye learn the professional style offense that he was asked to learn year one, or did they move on in year two? And did they give him something else? And did that set him back even further, or did it allow him to spread his wings and fly? I really don't know the right answer. I wonder, Tom, do you feel like the answer is going to get closer to Kingsbury the further along in time we get, because the game is just becoming more collegey, or is it not? I mean, the game is, if you look at passing numbers across the league, everybody's numbers are down. Running is up. The efficiency for running is up. It feels like it's actually moving away from the college game in some ways. And so if you're interested in the long play, what the Patriots are asking Drake Maye to do might not be a bad idea.
Well, because you could incorporate Drake Maye as a runner in the same way Jayden Daniels runs, but you have a guy who's 25 pounds heavier with a bigger, beefier frame. It's not Josh Allen, but the ability of Maye to perhaps create with his feet too, because that's the element of the offense that is for the best quarterbacks, or the young, the highest build quarterbacks. That's the element that they can bring. And that's what you see Jayden Daniels bringing too. So the passing numbers are down, rushing numbers for quarterbacks on occasion are up, or their productivity and efficiency is up because of their ability to run. That's something that the Patriots might be able to tap into, or Maye himself can tap into, which will be interesting to see. Like, what I'm fascinated to see is why are so many young quarterbacks ending up disastrous or having disastrous moments? Trevor Lawrence looks virtually unusable at the moment. Mac Jones already did enter unusable. Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow, but his team's 0-3. You go up and down all around the league, and then you have Sam Darnold playing the way he is, Derek Carr, retread, playing the way he is. Bryce Young's already on the scrap heap. If you're going to make these $50 million a year investments in guys, I just don't know what the best approach is. And that's why you look at the Drake Maye, Alex Van Pelt, Patriots approach is we have to install something that has substance to it. I'm not saying Doug Peterson didn't do that. I'm just saying that.
But I do look at coaching with all of these players that you talk about that end up flaming out. Listen, of course, scouts are wrong often. And they are wrong en masse often. There are how many consensus number one picks that were out there that ended up completely flaming out. So I do look at coaching first, though, and just wondering if these guys are able to make their players comfortable. To me, the biggest thing, and it's the easiest thing, and maybe it's too 50,000-foot view, but players who lose their confidence can't succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever it is for that guy, it's going to be different across the board depending on what kind of player you are, what you ran in college, what you're used to, how you learn, how you see the game in real time. Whatever you have as a coach, you have to make that person a confident player. I don't know what that means. If it means letting a running quarterback run every so often so that he can get the jitters out and take a hit or feel like he's showing toughness and contributing to the team in a way that some of his other teammates are, like, let him do it. You just have to allow these guys to, I think, feel good about what they're doing and start there and then progress forward. It's not that easy, I'm sure, because there's schematic stuff involved that some coaches are just never going to believe in, and there are some coaches that are always going to feel like you need to do X, Y, and Z to have success. But I just feel like there are so many quarterbacks who lose their confidence and lose it early, and then they never come back. That's why I give somebody like Sam Darnold a ton of credit.
Well, they have to go to
the
next place.
Yeah.
They have to go to the next place, and because they are polluted and unusable in that city. The way Mac Jones was, Derek Carr was always going to be Derek Carr in the black and silver of the Raiders. Maybe he'll be okay in the black and gold. I do think that there's truth to that. Once your city abandons you, you got to get out of there. You got to get out of there. All right, Phil, one observation I'm going to make real quick, too. Watching the Niners on Sunday, and they are absolutely riddled by injury. Javon Hargraves, talented defensive tackle. He's lost for the year now, too. Brock Purdy is playing weird football. I don't know what he thinks is going to happen when he runs around like that endlessly. But sometimes it turns into something. But sometimes, I mean, he's got his arm is a C. So when he runs around like that and then throws it, it's not turning into a Rogerian or a Roethlisbergian result. It's kind of ballooning out someplace after he runs around like that. I was stunned at how just careless is the wrong word. I just don't know what he thought was going to happen.
And yet he's not having a horrible year.
No.
Right? Like, if you look at, and I just have, because we were talking about it with Jacoby Brissett a little bit earlier, I have some of the next-gen stats in front of me. When it comes to his EPA per dropback, he's 4th in the league right now.
I mean, he's playing fine.
That's really good. His average yards per attempt, 9.7. Patriots would take that.
Yeah.
Or that's his air yards per attempt. So that's a completely different number. But, his ability to complete passes into tight windows. His receivers aren't getting a ton of separation, it looks like, from the next-gen stats. And therefore, he has a lot of tight window throws that he's trying to make, which is interesting because, this gets back to Jacoby Brissett and maybe how things might be different if Drake Maye were playing. His receivers are not getting open. If you look at just a quick numbers, deep dive again here, the quarterbacks whose receivers are not getting open right now, Kyler Murray, average separation of 2.8 yards. Brock Purdy is second worst, however you want to look at this. Dak Prescott. All of these guys also have a very high percentage of tight window throws.
I thought you were going to say they had high-end receivers. You got Marvin Harrison, CeeDee Lamb, and Brandon Ayuk.
They have high-end receivers, but they have high percentages of tight window throws, according to Next Gen Stats. So their guys are covered, and they're trying to squeeze the ball in there anyway. It makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very logical. Jacoby Brissett is with those guys when it comes to having receivers who aren't separating real well. He is 5th in the league in terms of average, 5th lowest, I should say, in terms of average receiver separation. It's a very low number, 3.1 yards. But his tight window throw percentage is way down relative to those other guys. He's 21st in the league in terms of tight window throw percentage. So what would that tell you?
Goes back to the point we were making at the beginning.
Super conservative.
Yep.
Doesn't want to try it.
Not doing that.
No, thank you.
No, thanks.
That's going to change when Drake Maye gets in there because he doesn't care. That's his nature. I don't know if they've tried to coach it out of him or if they, the turnover. We can't lose the turnover battle. Drake, go out there and don't turn it over, whatever you do, which is what they said to Mac Jones too. And obviously that didn't work real well. He was still turning it over all the time.
But it's funny because year 2 they told Mac, we're going to push it down the field. We're going to fling it around. We're going to throw it. You can take the chances. And where do you hear Dante Scarnecchia talking about 50-50 balls? You're going to like that, folks.
He probably doesn't love those.
Well, that's the stupidest thing. I love Dante Scarnecchia. So it's a glimpse of what we're going to be talking about later this week with the Niners. We're going to have Matt Mayoko from NBC Sports Bay Area joining us later this week for the Pats Talk Pod. Phil, next Pats, we got anything this week?
Yeah, we're going to have Jennifer Lee Chin, who also works for NBC Sports Bay Area. We're going to talk about team building and how the Niners have built that thing up and if there's anything the Patriots can try to copy, aside from that whole finding a quarterback in the 7th round thing.
All right, plenty to look forward to from both of these podcasts as the week goes along. Plenty to look forward to because you like football and so do we. Dante, coming up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, very lucky to have with us and at our service whenever we need offensive line conversation, the great Dante Scarnecchia, Patriots Hall of Famer, one of the great assistant coaches in the history of the NFL. Dante, thank you.
Well, thank you, and I don't know if I deserve all those accolades, but thank you for saying them.
It's clear. How were you able to do it in terms of the results that you were able to draw from so many diverse sets of offensive linemen who people would say, boy, I don't know if that guy's ready to play. What was the simple basics to your approach when it seemed as if you guys were up against it on the offensive line?
Number one, we had a great quarterback who helped us a lot. We had a lot of really good running backs that had great vision, and I think those guys are, they're just irreplaceable. Guys that can see where the holes are, or if there aren't any holes, we'll find something. We had a lot of those guys. And we had a lot of really good guys in the room, in the meeting room, that bought into what was being said. And they really, this word culture gets thrown around quite a bit, but, they were the culture. And when things, weren't going the way they wanted them to go, then they wouldn't mind telling people about it. And it just worked out really well. And I was really fortunate.
Well, we were fortunate to watch it, digest it, cover it, be fans of it all the way through. And you were a big part of it. First question I want to ask is relative to the Jets game. It's really seemed like the perfect storm of adversity. You had multiple players out, continue to be out. City Vidarian Lowe was out. He's been actually playing okay. Cole Strange remains out. And you had rookies in Caden Wallace and Layden Robinson in the lineup on the road in a fired-up atmosphere. Was that kind of a one-off game, or did you see some things that you'd be long-term concerned about?
I think that given all those factors, and the one thing that is just poison is getting behind by score, where it's just like, man, we got to throw the ball. As long as they can play, and especially when, the roster was reduced to what it was, Okorafor, he's gone. As you said, Verdarian, he's hurt. City he's hurt. And so you got to do something because the game's being played. So they all get out there. And then all of a sudden you get behind and it's one of those, you got to throw it. And, against a team that has really good pass rushers, and they really kind of got away from their personality of not being a big blitz team. And they became a blitz team that night. And it's just like anything, and the sharks are swimming and their blood's in the water, man. If you can't block it, you're getting a lot more of it. And they had some difficult pressures. So that's just it was really a bad storm, one of those imperfect storms you don't want to deal with. And we've all had to deal with it.
And it's coming again this week until they prove they can deal with it. What would be job one for you? What would be the number one priority for you as an offensive line coach? And I know that you don't want to undercut the guy there, Scott Peters, but just in general, what would you say to a group that just went through that kind of adversity and knows it's going to see it again until it can fix it?
Well, you just said it, if they're going to make you prove that you fixed it, okay? And if you and they'll know real fast if you haven't. And so when all of a sudden they bring a pressure, look at whatever pressures that the Jets ran last week, that's not going away, okay? Because you're going to get them until you prove you can block it. And so I would say that, you're going to get you're going to get more of the same. And you got to, this between when the game ended Thursday night, all through this week, you got to see all those things that gave you problems, and you got to work on those things. You can't stick your head in the sand. And Scott's not going to do that. He's going to work on the things that gave him problems and see if they can fix those things. And also, as important, stay ahead on down and distance, and try to avoid long yardage, and and hopefully keep it to where they can manage the game like they did in the first 2 weeks, where you can just hang in there and hang in there and hang in there, and things can come out maybe different.
And that's what I look at, overall, to not smash the panic button after this, because as Mayo has said a number of times now, we have controlled the line of scrimmage at different times. We did it in the first game. We did it for a large portion of the second game. So, again, perfect storm. But how do you, if you were an offensive line coach, what would you talk about with your offensive coordinator in terms of, these are the things that I think we're going to be tested on that we might want to stay away from? Is that an open line of communication that needs to exist?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what? I would probably say that it's unilateral across the staff. They're going to all say, all those offensive coaches and it's true across the league. It was true in our situation. They're going to get together, put together a game plan, say, look, we can't hold the ball against these 49ers because that guy out there on the left end, he's pretty good. Okay. And that's an area that's good. We got to take care of that guy. And as an example, the number one stunt everybody's running against everybody is the TE stunt. The tackle drives the gap between the guard and tackle. The end comes around, and it's like Chinese arithmetic. No one knows how to do it. So having said that, those things are just going to keep popping up, and they're going to keep happening. So how can you avoid it? Maybe slide the line that way. One, stay ahead on down and distance. You got Nick Bosa out there with the tight end next to the tackle. Does he have to stand and block? No, because the tight end is going to block Nick Bosa, but he can make Nick Bosa uncomfortable enough to maybe, if I get inside, he can down block on me, and they're going to get outside, or now I got to get outside, but he's further away from the quarterback, and maybe it buys a little more time for the tackle to get out. All those things, anything I just said is nothing hasn't been 1,000 times, and everybody's faced that situation. So you create things you do things to help yourself in those situations against good players, and every week, man, there's good players.
What's been your impressions of Jacoby Brissett so far? I termed his play in the first 2 weeks excellent, but I think I'm grading on a curve. But in terms of taking care of the ball, making decisions, putting them in positions to win, not being an impediment to success, I thought it was excellent. What have been your impressions as an offensive line coach, understanding the duress he's under?
I would concur exactly with you. I mean, he's doing his best to get the ball out. Everybody screamed after the first game, well, he only threw 3 passes to the wide receivers, on and on. I love that phrase, 50-50 ball. That drives me crazy, okay? Throw it out there. It's a 50-50 ball. That's like John McKay at USC. When you throw the ball, only 3 things can happen, okay? And 2 of them are bad, all right? So that 50-50 stuff doesn't sound so good to me, okay? Like Aaron Rodgers, when he throws the 50-50 ball, he's throwing it to a place where the receiver only has a chance for it. Let me rephrase that. The defensive back has no chance for it, okay? And that's what the good ones do. Tom did it all the time, he put it in a spot where they can't get it. That's why that position's so hard to play. And to Jacoby's credit, does he have an interception yet?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So, and there's been, obviously the other night there was a lot of pressure, and in the previous games where they're able to stay ahead on down and distance and, manage the game that way, it's a little bit easier. So if they can do that kind of stuff, I think it'll make it a lot easier for them. And I'm not saying anything that you don't know or anyone else doesn't know.
You live around here, you pay attention to the conversation. You know the conversation in 2024 is going to revolve around the 3rd overall pick. And why isn't Maye in there? Give him a shot. What do you think of the way the approach is right now?
I think it's the appropriate approach. I also think at some point in this season, Drake Maye is going to be out there. I just do,
I said
because you're going to want, look at, I think you want to be able to go through this year, it seems to me, and say, yep, we got the guy we want, okay? And then take all your resources and throw them into making a lot of other things better. And so how are you going to know that? You're going to have to find out at some point. And I would suspect, and I don't know if there's a plan for this, obviously, because I don't go over there, but I would suspect that there, at some point he'll be out there, and we kind of like the things we've seen. And, what is he? We're going to find out at some point. So I think everyone will get their wishes, and those that want Drake out there are going to, ultimately, I think it'll happen.
Yeah, and sadly, I think it may come because there's only so much of a thrashing that Jacoby can take. And
I love the way Jacoby plays. I think he's doing everything he has to do. With the skills he's got and all the rest of it. And hey, look, we won games with Jacoby when Tom was, in purgatory, and he went out there and played really good for us. I like the guy, and so he is what he is. We all know that, and he knows it too. But I just think that he's going to go out there and do everything he can to help the team win, and can't say any more for a guy than that.
I mean, the physical toughness he's exhibited, and you've seen tough guys. I mean, you've seen Tom. Tom took more merciless hits, I think, in different games at different occasions than anybody ever has. But I mean,
no doubt,
that's what I look at with Jacoby is at some point it's going to hit critical mass with the amount of hits he's taken. Would it have looked any different if Drake Maye was out there the first 3 weeks? People are going to look at Jayden Daniels' performance last night for Washington and say, if Jayden Daniels was here, I don't think Jayden Daniels would look like that if he was here right now. It's just the situations are different.
Yeah, I just hope that when he gets out there, it doesn't look like recess. Okay. And what recess looks like on the playground. Everybody go deep. I just hope it looks like, a guy that gets out there, gets him in the huddle, calls the plays, get him to the line. Look at the hardest 10 seconds or less in football is the quarterback standing on the line and looking at what he's supposed to be looking at. Okay, I think it's going to be this, and then the ball gets snapped. Now he's got to validate it. It's that, okay, or, oh my God, it's not that, it's this. That's why this thing's so hard to play. It's not easy. It's the hardest thing to do in all of sports. I don't care what anybody says, because there's not many guys that are really good NFL quarterbacks. And, all those things take time. Like Tommy didn't have the answers to everything in his first year, despite the fact that, in his first season playing, we won a Super Bowl. But he had a whole year to sit there and look at it, threw 6 passes and completed 3 as a rookie. And then the next year, Drew gets hurt and the rest is history. But so when is a guy's time? I don't know. I hope when it comes, he's as ready to play as he possibly can be. I'm talking about Drake. And we all see the things that we want to see and that give everyone all the hope that we all had when they drafted.
Dante, more a global question about the NFL. What do you think of the offensive product right now when you watch a game?
I think it's a byproduct of everyone saying we're not going to get anybody hurt in preseason. Totally. I think this is the preseason, and you got what you want. Okay, no one's hurt, or a lot of guys do get hurt, but I just think that's what it is. I think it's a byproduct of that. I mean, everyone chose not to play, or a lot of teams chose not to play their starter. It used to be first quarter, first game, first half, into the third quarter, third game, and don't play the fourth game. Okay, that was universal. It's anything but that now. Don't put them out there. Don't slam them. And I'm not saying you got to beat each other up, but I just know that I think you're just going to start at this point now, after 3 games, you're going to start seeing people maybe rounding into shape. I think that's maybe what you saw last night, Burrow, and maybe to a degree, the kid from Washington, I mean, his 3rd game, that was, holy mackerel, that was pretty special last night.
It really was. It really was. Now,
I think that's what you're saying. And so everybody's lamenting, oh man, the offensive production's way down. Well, they didn't do anything for 3 weeks in preseason. And I think that's a byproduct. This is a byproduct.
And you hear Tom Brady will talk about, and probably has many times with you, about the decline of quarterback play and guys just not being prepared in a similar fashion when they get to the line of scrimmage because they didn't learn a particular way of quarterbacking in college. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with it. And I remember this about Tom. When he left, I retired and he left here and he went to Tampa. And I was able to watch him from afar, just on TV, because if he was on TV, I'm watching.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be at the line of scrimmage, and I looked at him and I said, he knows where he's going with the ball right now. He knows where he's going. Okay, because he studied him, he studies the opponents, he knows, and sure enough, bang, completed pass, just all of that. And I think that I think that's hard to replicate. I really do. There's certainly guys that are good. I'm amazed by what Josh Allen's doing right now.
Mm.
I mean, he looks like the for real deal. Everybody's raved about the size and skill set and all that. He's pretty special right now, and I think it's great to watch.
Yeah, confidence is through the roof. And it was interesting to see Rodgers last week. Every time he saw any kind of a corner move off, boom, ball's out. Snap, ball out. It was 1.1 second. It was in the receiver's hands, and he was operating. And Geno kind of did a similar thing the week before. He knew where the ball was going. He's a 9-year veteran. It's not easy, but it's advanced quarterbacking that it takes guys a long time to achieve, I would think. Even a Mac Jones, and didn't have a great night last night in his cameo, but
Right.
He's going to be a player who is going to get into a situation, I think, where he's going to have the time to process, and that's where his mind is going to be able to show the same way, not in the exact same way as a Rodgers, but these guys who have the aptitude, I think, they have a little bit of a cheat code, but the NFL's embraced athleticism and playmaking too, in a way.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think, we there's so many instances where we take guys and we just bury them because they weren't what we thought they'd be and they're no good. Sam Darnold looks pretty good right now. Okay. And it's so hard. It's so hard, man. I remember Sam Darnold, I'm seeing ghosts out there.
Yep.
Much talked about that line. Well, you hadn't been seeing many ghosts here in the last couple of weeks. He's been doing what what they're supposed to be doing within the system there at Minnesota, and I think the coach there is really a great coach. He was one of our players, and so I'm really happy. I don't know Sam Darnold from Joe Blow, but I'm happy for those guys that everyone buried them, but they resurrect their careers, and I think that's great.
Dante, we can't thank you enough. You are a New England treasure. We appreciate your insight. We appreciate all you did for the New England Patriots while you were here, and your being accommodating to us anytime we have to have questions answered by a true expert. Thank you.
Anytime, Tom. Good talking to you.
You too.